everybody for joining. Just last week, just a few days ago, my wife and I and daughter, we decided to go someplace warmer for Thanksgiving week. So we flew into Las Vegas and saw very little of Las Vegas. There was a Formula One race that weekend in Las Vegas, so we kind of avoided that. And drove out to Death Valley and went to Grand Canyon and went kind of bopping around the Southwest to a few places that our daughter hadn't seen before. And then we decided to go down and spend some time in the Tucson area. And there's a museum there called the Titan Missile Museum. I know Klaus is aware of it. Has anybody else ever been to this museum? A few of you guys have. Did you ever use the antenna? You know the antenna I'm going to talk about. All right. So it's a really cool museum, and so I'll show you a little bit of that. But they've got a large antenna outside of the museum, and the local radio club has made it available for hams to use. You have to kind of sign it out, register that you're going to go use it, and I'll get into the details of that as well. But let me jump into. There we go. Just to kind of get everybody grounded in where we're talking about. So this is a little town called Green Valley, just south of Tucson. If you know Tucson very well, a little bit to the north is a cool place called Old Tucson, where almost every Western was ever filmed. And like hundreds of movies were made there. And so this is a little south of that. It was in the 1960s, completely empty valley. Like you would have been out literally in the middle of nowhere. No houses, no businesses, no anything around. And now it's all being built up all around this place with strip malls and restaurants and all kinds of stuff. But in the 60s, it was not really anything there. And as a part of the SALT Treaty, which had the USSR and the US start to remove some of the nuclear weapons from each side. Part of the treaty mandated that they destroy these Titan missile sites. So this is one that they were able to convince a local, I think, aviation group got together and said, we should save this because it's a piece of history. So there were 18 sites or 17 or 18 sites in the Tucson area. This is the only one that wasn't destroyed. There were 3 other locations in the country that had Titan missiles there, and those were destroyed. And that left the Titan Missile Museum here in the Tucson area. And you can see that you need to watch for rattlesnakes as you walk around the grounds there, as the sign says. A typical Titan bunker has the silo itself with the very large Titan missile. So our daughter is 22 years old. She's a junior at Iowa State. And so for her, at her age, this is all new to her. Like it's kind of a foreign concept, but for most of us, I think it's, we just knew that these things were here. And if you ever watched the movie War Games or something like that, you kind of knew some of the basics of what was involved with these things. So they will give you the tour of the silo itself, and you can go into the control center and see how the system worked and so on. I kind of described it to our daughter as it's like a really big gun with only one bullet. Once they turn that key, they've shot their one bullet. And then you can see the missile itself. So the missile is now inert. And I think this might not even be the original. This might have been one that they replaced. As a part of the treaty, you know that the Russians have satellites that fly over all the time and take imagery. As a part of the treaty and being allowed to leave this one site not destroyed, but as a museum, so to speak, there's certain restrictions that are put on this particular site. So they had to concrete the big, massive sliding door that would open up. They had to concrete it in place, kind of lock it open, so to speak. You can see on the side there, there's kind of a hole in the top of the reentry vehicle. So that's mandated that that has to be there. And as the satellite flies over, they're taking a look at this from time to time to just kind of check it out. The thing is massive. I don't remember the details off the top of my head, but over 100 feet long, and the silo itself is an impressive piece of engineering to construct a silo like that. Yeah, here's the missile base locations. As you go through the museum, there's a lot of history involved with Cold War stuff that you would see. But there are the 3 sites for the Titan missiles were there in the Tucson area, one in Kansas, and another one near Little Rock. Each of those would have had squadrons that would have manned these missile sites there. And then the other missile sites were for other programs, not the Titan II. So this is the antenna. It is, I don't know if you could see that very well. It's actually kind of a little bit difficult to take a picture of and really be able to see it very well. So it's 80 feet tall and made by Collins in Cedar Rapids for the military. I don't know if I've said yet. Does anybody know what type of antenna it is? You probably all know.
Disc cone.
Disc cone. That's right. What do you know about the disc cone antenna? Invented by Bob Discone. No, I just made that up. It was a product of about 1945, I think was when it was first designed. And I'll give you a little details here in a second, but I found it interesting that the museum website itself has a page dedicated to, hey, if you'd like to use our disc cone antenna, here's what you need to know, and kind of prepare you for it. And the Green Valley Amateur Radio Club has really put some work in to make sure that this thing keeps running. And it's not a trivial thing. So, you know, kind of where they're at, located, it obviously very hot in the summer months, but also they can get winds. Mechanically, it's quite a structure to keep on the air. So they need like 4 Daves to keep it running, probably, is my guess. They have so many mechanical joints in this thing that as the wind blows, the SWR can change radically, and you can hear a lot of electrical noise on a windy day. So it's kind of a tricky thing to keep in operation, especially given its age too. But anyway, interesting piece of equipment. There were other radio things that were interesting as I walked around on the tour that I took pictures of that I thought, I don't know, they kind of stood out to me, but I'll just throw these in real quick. One was their surveillance system. They call them Tipsies, and they're these, I don't know if you can see these kind of cone-shaped things, and they would point at each other. And if there was ever an intruder, it was kind of their motion sensing Doppler radar beam system that would let them know inside the silo that there was somebody moving around outside. And they make the note that in the 25-year history, no intruders were ever detected. They had a whole significant protocol for what they would do in case there was an intruder, and helicopters would fly in and all kinds of security personnel and so on. So that was interesting. Now you can see there's a piece of coax that's had I think an end connector on it, disconnected up at the top there. So back to the disc cone. The disc cone antenna, again, sponsored by the Green Valley Amateur Radio Club to keep it on the air. And I thought it was pretty cool that they give the repeater frequencies and how to contact them, and if you had any questions. And they seem to put in a lot of effort to keep this thing on the air. So what is a disc cone? Skip said he didn't know a ton about a disc cone. Anybody else want to throw their 2 cents in on the? Yeah, equally bad in all directions. Yeah. So I like to think of the evolution toward a disc cone like this, that everybody knows what a dipole is. So here's a simple dipole antenna. So a dipole is great at what it does. It's not omnidirectional. and it's not particularly broadbanded when we think of broadbanded in the sense of a ton of operational frequencies. It kind of does what it does very well, but it's a simple antenna. If we want to take a dipole and kind of take it to the next level, we can make a fan dipole and make a little bit more broadbanded beast of an antenna. A little bit more to maintain there with a fan dipole, but you can make something that's now resonant on multiple individual frequencies. And then there's a concept of a biconical antenna, which is a cone or two cones kind of back to back and open-ended to give you that more broadbanded antenna like Clint or like Paul was referring to. So this is a biconical antenna. And then there's another type of a biconical antenna. These were common for like TV antennas, UHF TV back in the day. You might have seen the bow tie antennas, the biconical. But a disc cone antenna is really just as simple as replacing one half of that biconical antenna with a disc. And so this is repurposed off of the Wikipedia page, but I thought it was good enough to use here. So this disc cone antenna has a useful frequency range of at least 10 to 1. When employed as a transmitting antenna, a properly constructed disc cone is just as efficient as an antenna designed for a more limited frequency range. The extra bandwidth comes from the controlled taper and large termination radius of the cone. The cone shape and the flat disc disperse the electric field. This reduces stored energy in the electric field, reducing the antenna Q while also reducing losses. The elevation pattern might be distorted with grading lobes. SWR is typically 1.5 to 1 or less over several octaves of frequency. So I want to pause there. So if you're looking for something that is very, very broadbanded in terms of several octaves of frequency, 1.5 to 1 or less, that's almost the definition of something that's very, very broadbanded. A disc cone antenna consists of three main parts: the disc, the cone, and the insulator. So there is an insulator involved there. I don't know if I see that in the image. There's some dimensions of the disc and dimensions of the cone. I don't think I'll go into the details there. Disc cones are used for ham purposes. Typically, I think of them as scanner antennas, people that want to listen across a very broad range of VHF, UHF. Diamond makes a commercial disc cone antenna. Jetstream makes a commercial disc cone antenna for ham use. And these are actually ones that you can transmit on as well. So just know that there are disc cones that are out there. Also note, though, that these are really VHF and UHF. So the beast that's at the Titan Missile Museum is for HF frequencies as well. So at the museum, this is the disc part of the antenna. This is the top structure, which is an array of elements just kind of horizontally pointing out. And then you see they actually have a light beacon on it at the top. And then this impressive ring structure that kind of becomes like a skirt for the cone down at the lower part makes up the other part of the cone. So structurally, it is impressive at 80 feet high, being able to keep something like that supported since the 1960s. So I went ahead and went into the museum, checked out the antenna, got the key to the lockbox to get you to the coax so that you can do something with it. First thing I wanted to do was what? What would you guys do? You got this key in this antenna. What would be the first thing you'd want to do with it? That's a good idea. The first thing I wanted to do was just see how broadbanded this thing was. is it myth or fact or fiction? So here's a SWR sweep of 40 meters. And if you can see that very well, it's a little bit blurry, but the 1.5 to 1 line is right here. And you can see that the curve, most of it is under that 1.5 to 1 on 40 meters. So first test looked pretty good. 40 looked okay. Here's 30 meters. And boy, it gets really blurry on the big screen when you blow it up. But again, 1.5 is this kind of middle line, and we're under 1.5 to 1 on 30 meters. 30 looked pretty good as well. 20 meters, mostly pretty good, especially maybe up in the phone band. This lower dip might have been up in the phone band, and right here would be 14.1. So a little bit over 1.5 to 1, maybe 1.7. This is 17 meters. Interesting that 17 meters, just a flat line at 2 to 1 all the way across the band. No idea why, but 17 was really flat. We mute them? Oh, it's somebody's phone, it looks like. Got it, Clint. Okay. Here's 15 meters. 15 meters at 21.1 was just creeping up over 2 to 1. So a little bit high on 15 for some reason. 12 meters, not too bad, about 1.2 to 1. And then 10 meters, right at 28.3 megahertz, was at 1.5 to 1, and pretty flat really across most of the band between 1.5 and 2. So SWR wise, now I kind of knew what I was working with before I jumped on the air. I had an antenna tuner with me. I hadn't plugged it in, and I just wanted to see if I could get away with running without a tuner. So that was really why I wanted to do the SWR sweep first. So then I went ahead and set up, they have a picnic table set up in the parking lot right next to the box where you plug your radio in. So it really couldn't have been any easier to use the antenna, jump on the air and do something with it. So I did that. Now, you know, the spot that I was at is not a POTA spot. I wonder if it could be a POTA spot at some point because it's a historic site, but it has not been registered as a POTA spot. An association, I guess. I'm not sure. There's one of the supporters is the National Park Service. They've donated more than $50,000 to it. I don't actually know who would be the owner of the property though. So, but in any case, you know, I wasn't at a POTA site, so calling CQ POTA wasn't going to work. I could have just tried to spot myself and tried to act like a special event station or something, but who knows what I would get for that. Start calling CQ. But well, this was all before taking the tour, so I had some limited amount of time. So I thought I would like to get some contacts in. So what I did was I just hunted POTA. And after a little while of hunting POTA, so about a half hour it looks like, made contacts everywhere from Canada to Puerto Rico across multiple bands. It looks like 30 meters, 20 meters, 15 meters, and 10 meters. So I got a few contacts in along the way. Okay, I'll pause for another question. Is this a good antenna? So that's a follow-up of my talk from last month about what is a good antenna? What makes good? Good that it's cheap, or good that it's portable, good that you can make contacts all over the place. It's terrible for photography. I think I saw that a club had tried to use it for field day one time. I'm not sure, like, would it be good for that? Good question. Uh, yeah, I think, well, I'll play this video. Hopefully you can hear the audio, and then you guys can wrestle with a little bit. Would you consider this to be a good antenna? This is a little sample of what it sounded like going through this antenna. Could I use this? Yeah, I can turn it back on. Is there, no, they can just. As long as that and then don't get together. Let's see. Ready? Yeah. No, that was 50 watts and just tuning around, making some contacts here and there on several bands. And so my conclusion is, now there's a lot of factors here, right? Propagation conditions and if there's a contest on, there's just a lot going on here to try to evaluate, is this a very good antenna? I actually wasn't that impressed with it. So I thought about just setting up my telescoping whip right next to it and switching back and forth to make a comparison, but kind of ran out of time to do that. But it was interesting to play with. I don't know that I would set one up in my backyard. That's kind of where I landed. I mean, it's a big HF antenna. I could talk all over the world if conditions were right. So
yeah, but under the conditions you were operating, you said you made some contacts?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, there's the map. So everything Puerto Rico to Canada. I didn't work really any European DX or anything like that that day, but got a few in that were okay. Yeah, it was interesting. There was another couple antennas that were on site that I would describe as like a flagpole or a big vertical that is below ground. And they have a way to, if they are attacked, the silo can survive a hit from a nuke from the Russians. So the missile itself is on these tremendously large springs, and it can take the shock wave, and they can pull the door open, and they can do all the stuff. But if they need to then contact the outside world, this big disc cone antenna is likely to be really damaged or destroyed. So they had another system of antennas that they could raise out of the ground and just become big vertical antennas to use for whatever they needed to. So, yeah. Skip.
Can you go back to a photograph of the disc cone antenna?
Sure. Like that one?
Fine. And now my mind does crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
Tilt it over, turn it over 180 degrees. The disc becomes the radials of the vertical, and the cone then is the vertical element.
Mm.
And to be broadband or multi-frequency, all of the vertical elements are of equal length in this cone. How come the plane of the end of the cone isn't tilted, which would give a variety of lengths, which might give it low SWR on a whole lot of frequencies?
So you're thinking, yeah. Oh, okay. So Skip's question is wondering why the design of the disc cone doesn't sort of tilt at an angle or look like it would. And if you did it that way, you could have those vertical wires that are coming down be varying in length, and that would allow you to have different frequencies. I think if I'm following what you're saying, Skip, if you did something like that, then it's the idea of the fan dipole where the lengths of different wires are kind of going to give you that advantage of different frequencies.
Yeah.
He's got-
You
Yes,
did
Commander.
have stepping water modulated frequencies.
Yeah,
So I would label it, yeah, that's a good antenna. Maybe not for every purpose.
yeah,
Having had trouble getting low SWRs with antennas, and you come up with one that does, that's it. Yeah, you've got a good antenna there.
right. So Skip is commenting that low SWR on a lot of frequencies to a lot of people would be a good antenna because you have that low SWR on a lot of frequencies. I always think too, I don't mean this to sound any worse than intended, but I always think a really good dummy load also has really low SWRs on a lot of frequencies. And so doesn't
Exactly,
necessarily mean it's a great antenna.
exactly.
His hand up, if you want to call him.
Yeah, Chuck, go ahead.
The, yeah, that would not work, Skip, because it's a disc cone. The disc and the cone, that cone is not made of wires. That cone, from an RF perspective, is, if you will, a solid sheet of metal. The wires are close enough together, so it's a cone, and SWR, only hams worry about SWR. First of all, that antenna's probably got a 4 to 6 inch coax, if not larger, feeding it. So it could be running 50 to 1 SWR, and there's not going to be a real problem. Secondly, the transmitter driving that antenna, the barefoot one may have been a kilowatt, and it was probably closer to 4 or 10 kilowatt. And again, the SWR, I'm looking at a radio right here that's brand new commercial, and I can disconnect the antenna from it and lay the coax on the ground with no termination and still make contacts, and the radio is just happy. It is happy. A ham radio would not be. But so my answer to, is it a good antenna? You can't get much better than that for what it is intended for. I'll
Yeah,
take
that's
one any day if someone wants to give me one. Yeah, there you go. That picture there, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you get to HF size, having that being a solid disc and a solid cone becomes really problematic. And the feed point's at the top up there. That's where that insulator is they were talking about, would be at the top. So yeah, I'd take one without a doubt. Not necessarily for the ham bands, but I'd take one.
You've done with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll put it all back.
sure.
You want to mute that.
Thanks, Chuck. Have any luck, so.
Your comment about the dummy load has good SWR. Yeah, that I use that example an awful lot.
Good, Pat.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or anything about, anybody want to set up a disc cone in their backyard? I think, so it was 80 feet. Yep. Right. So that one was 80 feet high, and gosh, it had to be, I don't know if it was 80 feet across, but somewhere in that ballpark of 80 feet across for that ring. Yeah. So it's a beast. It's a beast.
Well, and you can also, they did have it hooked up for you there, but many of the disc cones, and I have no idea how they do this, but I know a couple that we use down at Maxwell, there's a switch at the operating position, and I can switch that disc cone from high angle to low angle radiation. And I have no idea. I'd love to know how they do that.
Huh. You don't think there's another antenna involved and they maybe phase the two to do that, Chuck? Or I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what's going on.
No, that could be because there are, in that case, there are two disc cones, in the same close vicinity to each other.
Hmm.
But what was pointed out to me is the control mechanism for that, the box with the relays in it. Each disc cone had one of those, but again, I don't know what, I have no idea what it was switching. It just always puzzled me, and I've never really tried to figure it out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Radio Club has a page on their website about the discount antenna with a bunch of blog talking about the
history of it.
history and the technical capabilities, and some of the guys who were actually stationed there that maintained it have chimed in. So
Yeah.
it could be Green Valley Amateur Radio Club.
Yeah.
Somebody who's looking, it's an interesting read.
And I probably need to send them an email and tell them I used it and what my experience was. But they said that they really appreciate it when people use it and then let them know that they used it. And so, yeah, it would be quite a endeavor for a local radio club to maintain something like that. So.
How would you rate it as a receiving antenna?
So if your goal is, I want to be able to listen to a lot of, very broadbanded, many frequencies, then I suppose it would be okay. I think I mentioned earlier the mechanical issues with it in its current state. Some of the joints and welds have been disconnected now, and they kind of in the wind will make little contacts, and so kind of noisy. But yeah, I didn't think that I heard a whole lot of signals on the bands as I tuned around, actually. So again, might have been just that it was not a great day propagation wise or not a lot of activity on, but that little clip of video, I tuned around for a while, and the bands didn't seem to be particularly busy for what I heard. So Chuck.
Yeah, I just want to partially answer that question. Broadbandedness means one thing to hams because all of our ham bands are harmonically related. There probably was a reason for that. So, a 40-meter dipole is fully functional on 15 meters, for example. The rest of the services are not so lucky. So they need something to be relatively flat. Flat generally is determined to be somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 1 across the whole HF spectrum, because they use the whole HF spectrum. They're not using isolated slots that are harmonically related. So it's a whole different ball game in that regard.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one of the things that was pointed out, I think on the tour, somebody mentioned this, but in the event that there were nuclear strikes going back and forth and, all kinds of really bad things would have happened, the guys underground would have needed to make contact with the outside world, but they would have no idea what that looked like. So who are you going to be able to talk to? What frequencies are they going to be on? What's available? And so they just needed an antenna that could be used on virtually any frequency to do just about anything. And so that's why the disc cone was a good choice for what they were trying to do.
It say something like, well, Henry could be able to reach Cheyenne Mountain.
They didn't ever bring that up, but
Because NORAD headquarters.
yeah, they talked about SAC needing to be in contact with SAC. They didn't ever mention Cheyenne Mountain, though. I was kind of a little bit surprised, but yeah.
Site.
Yep. Yeah. Maybe that's still classified.
Take it, they were running pretty high power.
You know, they never did say, there wasn't, the gal that gave the tour that we were on, she must have been about, maybe 30 years old. So she would have never been stationed in there. She was a, Air Force brat kid, but also a history major and, going to be a history teacher. So she knew her stuff, kind of the script that she had. She knew the script really well and could answer a lot of questions, but things like how much power were they running would have been kind of outside of her lane. They did have teletype equipment in the control center that you saw, and there was I had never seen it before, but the teletype machines that I was used to in the 70s that had the paper tape, this had a metal tape, and I had never seen a metal tape like this one. Maybe Chuck, do you know what that was about?
No, unless it was a tape that they would use for transmitting only, and it just had to be reliable and always there.
That's what I wondered, if it was a special coded tape that, had to be used frequently and you would wear the paper out. So this one was metallized and
Right.
don't know.
Very deep underground. It was used for communication. It was connected to a lot of landlines. Several years ago, I attended a little discussion where the owner of that place was using it for secure server room space for computer servers. But basically, they were in Boone County. They were really secret. They went deep, and they had landlines. And I don't know what the connection with any of the launch facilities would be, but they were definitely part of the grid to keep communications going. Don't even know if they had antennas, but it would really be interesting to find out, and it's so close.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to describe what that is that he's talking about? Anybody here know? I mean, I know somewhat about it. I drive by it all the time. It's right on Highway 17. There's one of them old microwave towers.
Yeah.
The same one that's by Kelly. So if you drive up 17.
What was the question?
The big microwave tower, Chuck.
Oh, yeah, on 17.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to have equipment in there. Yeah, that was a cross-country point back in the 70s when I would be hooking up military circuits. I always had to test with AT&T we called it the Boone Underground, because there's a 3 or 4 story building underground. It's all bomb-proof, all equipment sitting on springs inside. The bays that I put in were the first ones that were actually bolted to the floor that had ever been put in there. So that was built, I don't know, back in the 50s, I believe, is when that was built. But yeah, a lot of the secure communications that they had back then went through Boone, or one leg of it did, yes.
Good.
It was, while you're getting the microphone to Skip, it was interesting. They did comment that some of these silos now that were not destroyed have been purchased by people for various uses. One guy turned one into something like a house or a Airbnb. You can rent it and stay in it for a few days. Somebody else turned one into a mushroom farm. And so it's all layers of mushrooms going down and just different uses for some of these things now. Yeah, Skip.
Chuck, Jim Graham, W0 NFL, had worked for Western Electric, which was the supplier for AT&T, and he was familiar with that site. He mentioned it a little bit, but I never got any details. But he was more knowledgeable than he let on about that site.
Jim knew a lot of stuff about a lot of things.
Yeah, it was a very interesting site. The first time I was in there, all I knew is at divestiture, suddenly I had microwave there, and I'd never been there. didn't know how to get in. I just knew I had a key. And in the middle of the night, I got a call out and I went in and the key unlocked the outside door. And then my adventure began because it was a little hut in a garage above ground. And I put my equipment on an elevator like a little elevator for equipment. And it was 40 minutes before I found where it was at the bottom end. And it was just exploring and these huge bomb-proof doors that you could hardly get open. And it was just so interesting that some real history there, and now I think the last I knew they used it for record storage. Somebody had bought it and was using it for a secure record storage place. So
Yeah, that sort of takes us back to what Wayne's talking about, more the current use. It is used for secure storage data center.
yeah,
That's its current use now.
it's pretty bomb-proof.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last questions? Thank you, Pat. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Very interesting.
I could, if we have a couple minutes here.
Yep. Go ahead and
just
take it.
real quick. Here's some pictures of the control center.
You sharing?
Am I sharing?
Nope, you turned it off.
It says I'm sharing. Oh, do we need to?
No, it's just not sharing. Just stop it and restart it.
No, you're good. It's coming across, or it was.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Why don't I see it?
Yep, there it is.
Oh, it's popped out. That's right.
Yeah,
We popped it out.
there you go.
There we go.
So that was the tour guide. But that's the control center equipment. That's the guidance system for the missile. You can see the gyroscope and all the different circuit boards that were in there to run a missile. The urinal had a picture of a rocket over the top. So I don't often take pictures of urinals, but it was an impressive. Yeah.
Well, that's a modern urinal because it wouldn't have been mounted like that back in the day. It would have been vibration proof with no, like the Boone Underground, there were no pipes going to a toilet or anything. It was all radiator hoses, basically. Something that
Wow.
would,
Flexible.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is the box for the antenna. It's, got a padlock on it and you got to go in and get the key in order to get access. So that was pretty cool. If there's anything else in here. Oh, I did maybe a little bit nerdy, but I wanted to get pictures of the SFI was at 208 and the A index was at 8 and the K index was at 1. So it should have been decent propagation for the day. So if there's anything else in here that the red notebooks that are on there are your books that have the codes. Yeah. The rotary. Yeah. The dial. Yeah. Teenagers wouldn't know what that was now. What kind of thing is that? Dual padlock systems and there's the teletype tape that was metallized. I thought that was interesting. And that's the springs for the missile.
Missile site in Alabama that had a mishap.
Oh.
Where the fueling had a leak with the fuel and it
Yeah.
launched the warhead out and landed in a ditch like a mile away or whatever. And it was a big thing. It's a really good documentary. I think it's on Amazon Prime. You can find it. Or
What was it called?
Command and Control.
Thanks.
That's what got me interested in the Titan II. That's why I want to go to this site. I didn't have any idea that there was this amateur radio
Yeah.
side to it, so I'll have to.
Yeah. And it's really cool. I think so. I think about what it takes to launch a missile. So that missile's got to have power as it gets up and running, and you got to run the navigation system. So if it's got to have power, it's got to have a battery. So if it's got to have a battery, how do you maintain a battery that's on a missile? So start thinking through all the sequence of events from the president saying, yeah, go ahead and launch the missile to the time that it actually gets out and starts flying. The first thing that happens is they poke a button and it dumps a electrolyte. It dumps fluids into charge the battery that's on board the missile. And that's like 30 seconds just getting that going. And then they got to get the propellant into the missile because that's not stored in the missile all the time. Or with Titan II, they started doing that. And then eventually they switched to solid from liquid. So anyway, all the steps to get things going. And the big advancement with the Titan program was that it just shortened that timeline from hours to get a missile in the air down to whatever, less than 5 minutes or something like that. So pretty impressive. This is a picture of those antennas that would pop up out of the ground. So you can see the cap on the ground, and then if they ever needed to, they could order these things to be deployed. If anybody had a medical emergency or if there was ever a security issue, a helicopter would bring a detail out there to take care of things at the site. To get into the silo itself, you had to go through a series of security protocols. You have to make a call at the gate and tell them the codes, and the codes are updated daily. And then once you got in through the gate, now you had like a minute to get to the next phone to make another call with another set of security codes to get through a set of doors. And then you had to get into the next level and make another call. And if anything within these 3 minutes wasn't done in the proper sequence, then you weren't getting in, and they're going to call security out there to take care of things. So pretty impressive. Yeah. So good stuff. You guys don't want to see all my desert pictures, but there you go.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Appreciate it.